How do you handle disagreements and confrontations with your mother-in-law, and how do you resolve it with your husband? Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thanks for joining. If you already subscribed, thank you so much. This is part 2 of my mother-in-law living with me video. So if you guys have not seen part 1, definitely go check the card above. I'll also link it down below. So in the first part, I talked about the general adjustment of her coming here, and I answered some of your guys' questions, but you guys had way too many questions. So I am actually going to be answering 16 more questions that you guys submitted, both here on the YouTube community tab and on Instagram. So I'm just gonna jump right in. So the first question comes from Krista, and she asks, is your mother-in-law as accepting of your culture as you are of hers? I'm sure it's a huge adjustment for her in the US. I would say overall she is pretty accepting of our culture here in the United States, although she does have some trouble with it because she is a bit older and she doesn't speak English. So I think she really wants to learn English, but she's tried and she's really struggled with it. It's difficult for her to learn, so she hasn't made much progress with that. But in terms of just general culture, I think she's open-minded to just learning and accepting it rather than kind of being in her own bubble, because I think that's something that some old people might do, is they might just be like, well, this is how I have my life and this is how I think it should be, and they may just close off anything else, but she's definitely not like that at all. So next, Ching Pham asks, how do you handle disagreements and confrontations with your mother-in-law, and how do you resolve it with your husband? So I would say overall, I'm very lucky because we don't have any huge or serious confrontations or disagreements, but whenever there is something that comes up, the first thing that I do is not to react in the moment, but I actually will wait and talk to my husband about what happened and get his opinion, because sometimes it could just be a miscommunication, or sometimes it could be something where maybe it is a cultural difference, and I personally don't want to speak in the heat of the moment and then maybe say something that is not respectful or also be misunderstood with the language barrier. So I usually will go to him, let him know what happened, hear what he has to say, and then either he will address the issue or he'll let me know how I can respond if it happens again. If it's something that's like a little more less serious, then maybe I can address it myself. So he'll almost like coach me on how I can respond that is still respectful but also gets my point across. Okay, so Kay Lam asks, what has been the most challenging thing you've encountered and what has been the most rewarding? So I did talk a lot about the challenges in the first part of this video, so I'm not going to talk too much more about it now, but definitely the most rewarding thing is being able to have her here and have a family member helping me to raise my daughter, because it was very difficult the first 16 months being alone and not having any form of like your village to help you raising your kid. And so I think that is definitely the most rewarding thing, is being able to see Amelia growing up and having her grandma here with her so she can have a relationship with her grandma. So those were from YouTube community tab. Now the next questions are from Instagram. So if you're not following me on Instagram, definitely go follow at motherinlaw. I share lots of behind the scenes, cute pictures and videos, and I love talking to you guys in the DMs over there. So Ting asks, does she respect you and your husband's boundaries when it comes to raising Amelia? I have to say yes, and I talked a little bit about this in the last video, but when it comes to how we do things around here, I think she is the type of person who doesn't want to cause any issues, and she would rather learn from us and then do it our way. And since the beginning, she's always been like this. So when she first got here, she actually had a notebook and she would write out notes about like how we do things, because she wanted to make sure that she did it the way we do it. And so we haven't really had any issues so far in terms of her not respecting the boundaries or not respecting our wishes, and so I'm very grateful for that. Gabby asks, does she judge your eating, cleaning, or doing anything habits? I have to say a little bit. So like in terms of eating, I think she thinks I'm crazy because of how much junk food and sweets I eat. She just thinks it's horrible, and so she'll just, you know, like say something, not in a mean way, but just making a comment. And in terms of like exercise, I like to exercise at night, but she has this idea that exercising at night is bad for you and you should do it in the morning. So she's always like, you shouldn't do like at night, and you shouldn't be running that fast and that hard, because sometimes I'll go really hard on it. She's like, you should do more gentle, do morning exercise. And so she has her opinions and I listen to it, but at the end of the day I just do my thing. Love Melisha asks, does she love Peanut and how is she with him? This is actually something I was super worried about before she got here, because in Vietnam they don't have dogs in the house. So they have dogs, but they live like in the basement, and then like they go outside and roam around during the daytime. But you will not be finding dogs in your bed, because that is just totally disgusting to them. So when she first got here, I was like, oh no, how's she gonna like it? And she in the beginning was very apprehensive of him because she didn't know how he was gonna behave with the baby. But over time she saw that he's just a cuddly bear, he's not gonna hurt anybody. And we feed him a raw diet, and she had this idea that if he eats raw meat he's gonna be like aggressive, but she saw he is not aggressive at all. He's just like, okay, I can't say he wouldn't hurt a fly because he does eat flies, but he's a good dog. And so now we call him her best friend, because she'll be like sitting and then he'll come sit next to her, and she used to shoo him away and now she doesn't. And she also gives him food scraps when she's cooking, so like a little piece of like meat or cabbage, she gives him like the good piece of cabbage. And the other day she was talking to him in a baby voice and I was so shocked. She was like, oh, you get to eat all this good stuff, and I was like, are you still the same woman? So yeah, she loves him. She just doesn't like his shedding because his fur is everywhere, but I don't like that either, so we agree on something. So Annie asks, how do you deal with a difference in opinions? I lived with my mother-in-law for 8 years and often quarrel. So I think because we both are consciously making the decision not to like rock the boat, I think it's a lot calmer in this household, because even if we do have opinions on something, we don't force each other. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but like she may not agree with something that I do, but she's not gonna make a huge fuss about it. And unless she's doing something that I believe is dangerous, I'm gonna let her do her thing when it comes to Amelia, because I don't think it's worth it to nitpick everything that the other person is doing. And so I think in that sense it's pretty harmonious in this household. And so yeah, and I also think that I'm lucky because I am a foreigner, and his parents have always from the beginning understood that I probably am not going to do things the same way as them or have the same beliefs as them. And so I think it's been a lot easier for me as a foreign daughter-in-law. If I was Vietnamese, it might not have been this easy because they might have had different expectations of me. Vincent asks, what activities do y'all both enjoy doing? I would definitely say grocery shopping. I love taking her to the supermarket, and we love to look at all this stuff and check the prices and see what's on sale, see what's there, decide what to cook. So that's something that we really enjoy doing together. And then we also just like chatting. She loves to tell stories, and I always love to practice my Vietnamese. So like the other night I was in her room for an hour, just her and I, and we were just chatting. And so it's kind of fun to have someone to talk to. Vicky asks, how long is she staying? So she is a green card holder, so she could stay as long as she wants, but I think that she is a little bit homesick, and so I don't know how long she actually will stay. We do plan to have her go back to Vietnam once or twice a year once COVID calms down, but for now it's kind of a mess, so she's stuck here for now. But once she can go, she'll go home and have visits. I think her original plan is to stay here until our kids go to school, so she can help during like the daycare year, so we don't have to actually pay for daycare. We probably will end up sending Amelia to school in September just so she can get socialized, and hopefully she'll be vaccinated and COVID will be better by then. Please, I hope. But we'll only send her maybe like twice a week kind of thing, just for social. But I don't want to have to spend a bunch of money on childcare when my mother-in-law is here, but also, yeah. So that's that. But as far as if she wants to stay forever, I'm okay with it. My husband's okay with it. We've already told her she can stay as long as she wants, and so it's just up to her. Okay, so I got a few questions from the same person, this girl named Me. First she asked, does Mia have a preference of grandma over you? How does that make you feel? So in the beginning, this is something I was really worried about. I wanted my baby girl all to myself, and I was afraid she was gonna love grandma so much. And now I'm happy because she loves grandma, she still loves mommy, but I get a break because she's totally cool hanging out with grandma. Honestly, she's better behaved with grandma, so grandma can watch her for longer periods at a time than I can, because for me, she's like making me run around and do stuff. I get so tired. But with grandma can just sit and chill, like watch videos on her phone, and Amelia plays independently, and yeah, it's pretty good. So she also asked, do you speak Vietnamese all the time now that your mother-in-law lives with you? For the most part, yes, we do speak a lot of Vietnamese at home. I still speak in English with my husband if it's just one-on-one, the two of us, but if we're at a like communal environment like dinner table, sometimes I'll speak to him in Vietnamese as well so that grandma doesn't feel left out. And so yeah, I am hopefully improving my Vietnamese skills, but it is exhausting to speak a second language. Another one from me is, do you cook meals and eat them all together or separately due to food preferences? So for breakfast and lunch, I usually eat my own thing. Grandma cooks breakfast for Nguyen and she makes her own thing. Lunch, grandma and Nguyen usually eat together, like Vietnamese style lunch, and I'll eat like American stuff like soup, sandwiches, whatever I'm eating, spaghetti, some weird stuff. And then for dinner, we all eat together. So she's pretty open-minded. We cook all different cuisines, American, or like sometimes Mexican food, Italian food, some Asian foods, and she'll cook Vietnamese too. So we kind of have like a rotation. So if we had pasta this week, probably next week we won't have pasta, we'll have like potato instead. So it's not like always pasta or always the same stuff. So that's how we kind of deal with that. Joey Honey asks, what's the hardest thing to say no to her, and what's the easiest thing to say no to her? So to be honest, I don't actually have a hard time saying no to her, because I feel like for the most part, she doesn't do things that I have to say no about, if that makes sense. Like I've told you guys, we've gotten to a rhythm, we know each other, we know how things work around here, and so it's not like I'm like, oh my god, no, don't do that. For the most part, I don't have to do that. And if there's anything that involves Amelia's safety, I have no problem saying no. If there's something that I don't agree with and it has to do with my daughter, my husband and I are both very confident in saying we are not okay with whatever it is. So we don't really have issues with this. And then My June asks, can you share how raising Mia with your mother-in-law works, tips for others? So I think I already shared quite a bit about this already, but in terms of tips, I would say the first one is to definitely stay open-minded and be accepting of each other's opinions. Secondly, I would say to be on the same team as your husband. Hopefully your husband is on your team and not on his mother's team. I find that if you have to like constantly be defending what you believe against both mother-in-law and husband, that's not gonna work. And for the most part, Nguyen and I are on the same team, so it's made it a lot easier for us, where she knows like, okay, they both don't want XYZ, so this is how it's gonna go. So I think having a strong husband-wife team definitely helps. And then the last thing is to just be grateful, because if you have help raising your kids, that is such a big thing, because so many people don't have help. So every morning I write in my notebook like things I'm grateful for, and often I'll just write my mother-in-law, because I don't know what I would do without her. So even if it's not always smooth sailing, I'm super grateful to have her here. And then the last question I had comes from Bona. She asks, what do you do when she does the exact opposite of what you asked her to do? So honestly, this has never happened, so I have nothing to say about that topic. But if that happens to you, I'm sorry, because that does not sound fun. So that is it. I hope between these two parts of the video, I answered all your questions, and I hope you guys enjoyed learning a little bit about our experience. It's not as bad as people claim it is, at least not for us, so I'm very grateful for that. Again, I know that the Vietnamese culture has this mother-in-law, daughter-in-law strained relationship that just apparently always happens, but for me, I'm super lucky and super grateful, and I love my mother-in-law. So that is that. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, share it if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!